All right, welcome back, YouTubers, to another episode of this podcast. We got Cool Man Caleb over here. We have Dom over here. I am Dr. B. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're excited that you're here. So if you are in the program, the online program, which is what this podcast is for. So if you're viewing this and you're not in the program or doesn't line up, it's podcast could still be for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to do exam review, but it's not going to be going over the material. I feel like we've gone over that a lot. We had 5 town hall meetings last week that went over from the very beginning all the way through the material. We did some group exercises or we reviewed group exercises and went over those that we do in the face-to-face program. And we also went over what's the other one we went over? It was group exercises and
Practice exam.
the practice exam, right? So it's kind of like a TBL, right? A team-based learning. That's a little bit harder to do on an asynchronous platform. So we went over that, right? We went over that, and hopefully those were good. If you didn't know about those, please check those out and go through that. Other feedback that we received from some of these amenities that we have provided to students are our exam-like practice questions. Please go over the exam-like practice questions. Those we cannot tell you enough. Those are really going to prepare you for the exam. Okay. And so, yeah, so today we're just going to really talk about what I want to talk about. The agenda today is going to be essentially study habits, right? We've been getting some initial feedback, even from the first exam. Students who have increased their score from exam one to exam two, and hopefully from exam two to the final exam in this course. We said, what made a difference? What really changed in their score? And yes, some of them have looked at the material and said, like, yes, those supplemental things have really helped. But a common theme has presented itself across the board. We've had students who haven't looked at the supplemental materials and still done a lot better. We said, well, what did you do differently? What changed to help you increase your score? And it came down to the time that they dedicated to preparing for the exam, right? The time that they prepared for and that they utilized for studying. So on exam one, where they perhaps didn't do so well, maybe they only prepared a couple of hours, right? They went through the material and they prepared a couple hours. Well, they did much better on exam two. And what changed was instead of a couple hours, they prepared for a couple of days, right? This kind of gets to the understanding that's really hard to let students know. We can talk until we're blue in the mouth, right? Or what is it called? Blue in the face, right? Don't forget to beat a dead horse, I think, or beat a dead cow is what I said last time. I get these mixed up, but it's fun, right? We can talk till we're blue in the face about you need to study. You really have to do this, but that is the reality, right? Until you experience it, that's the reality. And listen, if you didn't do as well in the first exam, that's okay, right? That is common. It's very, very common. Our GTAs were the top scoring in the class last year, right, through the face-to-face masters. And their exam one score, even though in hindsight you look back and it's the easiest material, they did the poorest of all their exams in that first one because you just don't know what to expect. So I'm gonna just have this time right now where we talk about some study help, techniques, or we talk about just your approach to studying. The rest of the GTAs, we didn't exclude them from this. They are either out, sick, not feeling well, or for whatever reason, we only have, well, not only, right? Listen, you guys are enough. All right, you guys are enough. I want you to internalize that, bring that in. You guys are enough. But we've got Caleb and Dom. So I'm going to hand it off to Dom first. So Dom, take it away. Let's see if it. There we go. Dom's got the glasses. We could go. Here we'll turn it a little bit, Dom, and we'll spur back over.
For me, my study habits were pretty poor coming into the program itself. I had to really analyze the way I studied for things. I was always the person who I sat down and I would rewrite notes over and over and over again. And just, it was very time consuming, and I wasn't absorbing as much as I thought I was absorbing. And that's where I found myself at the first exam. And I was one of those students who performed poor on the first exam in the program as well, just because I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't studying properly.
Right.
Um,
Now, when you say
and
studying properly, what do you mean?
so
Because I've told students the past 10 years, or talked to students about
yeah,
this. I don't say told, that sounds dictatorial, right? But I've talked with students, and I really try to iterate
mhm,
that that reading through the material is not studying.
yeah,
I'm going to say that again. Reading through or going through the material is not studying.
mhm,
So, meaning that studying is an active absorption, right? It's
yeah,
an active, not only absorbing and gaining that knowledge, but figuring out how to apply that knowledge in a scenario, a
yeah,
question, a
yeah.
clinical vignette, or whatever else. So, like, tell me what you
It's
mean about like
so
you weren't really studying.
yes. So in moving on throughout the program, I started to use different methods of studying
Okay,
for exams.
good. Like
So,
what? Can you give me
so
some
I would
examples?
I would, first of all, I would take the study guides that were presented to us.
Okay.
And instead of going and just rewriting notes over and over again, the study guides, they have these topics and questions to sort of prime your brain in order to
Mm,
engage with the content.
gotcha.
And so I would take the study guide and I would write like paragraphs about the content itself. And so it would
So
be,
not copying it,
and not
but
copying
like
it
de
and like
novo
putting
writing in
it
your
in,
words.
yes, putting it in my
Ah.
words and summarizing like the highlights of each topic within the content
And
itself.
so that's such a great thought. And if you look at Bloom's taxonomy of learning, right,
Mhm.
what you're doing is you're synthesizing.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so that,
absolutely.
remember, we're not saying don't just copy the notes, right? Because that
Yeah,
perhaps is what you were doing
yeah,
beforehand
yeah,
to a large
yeah,
degree. But what you're doing is you're actively synthesizing. And what you have to do is you have to, number one, you have to know the content.
yeah,
Then number two, you have to think about the content. And then three, you have to arrange the content into words in your mind and then put it down on paper. Think about it while you're putting it down on paper.
yeah.
See yourself putting it down on paper
Mhm.
and making sure it all makes sense in your mind together. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. So
And
synthesizing it.
And one thing that like there's another component to this which is not like particularly applicable with like a asynchronous online program, but can be if you meet with the GTA in regards to this. But I had a couple friends and we would lock ourselves in a study room, and after the three of us we'd each complete the study guide, and
Mm.
then we'd come together and one friend would talk out number one
Teach, right?
and
They would
yeah,
teach it
they
essentially.
so it's like we would go through and like this person would talk to number one, I'd talk to number two, the other person would talk to number three, and we would just go around and just explain it to each
So
other.
teaching the see, that's
Yes.
fantastic. That's
It,
another tactic that
that
I used as well
yeah.
when I was in grad school. That is that we would, like you said, we would split the topics up. Now, all of us had gone through the topics,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But we would split it up and we would say, okay, I'm going to teach this. So we would take 30 minutes, prepare something, and we would take turns
Yeah.
teaching each other.
Mhm.
And the people who were listening, we had to actually be involved and ask
Yeah.
questions about
That's
it.
yeah.
So now for our audience, we've got asynchronous students who
Yeah.
potentially are at home. They don't have a classmate who understands the material.
Mhm.
Let's brainstorm and let's bring Caleb into the conversation here. What are some options or thoughts that we could potentially recommend? A first one that comes up to me is they don't have to be an expert for you to teach it,
Mhm.
right? You could
Absolutely.
set your 4-year-old in front of you and teach it as at a basic 4-year-old level, because that's
Or
going
your
to help.
dog.
You can do a dog, right? So you don't have kids, right? You have a dog. Let's see. Another option is, and this is really interesting. This is actually getting into some of these other newer topics. Is AI? Man, AI is getting
Absolutely.
it's getting almost conversational now,
Mhm.
where you can talk through a concept and say, "Do I have this right?"
Yeah.
Based on these notes. So you could even upload some files and say, based on these files, let's have a conversation about voltage gated calcium channels, the
Yep.
L-type calcium channels in the T tubules of a skeletal muscle. Like,
Yep.
what does that look like? And you can even do that with AI. So that was just a thought I had.
Mhm.
Caleb, let's pass the buck to you and bring you in on the conversation. What are your thoughts?
Well, just really briefly on what you were saying, I like to So mine.
You gotta scoot up.
Oh,
Dave.
I
You
got
gotta scoot up. You gotta,
So-
front center. No, you gotta get over, shift over. Hey, come on,
Okay,
shift
there
over.
we go.
There we go. There we go. He's right.
So I'm the only person in my family who does like science-esque things.
Okay,
So,
alright.
so nobody has really like anything past high school biology is essentially foreign.
Gotcha.
So what I like to do if I'm trying to explain something, I try to relate it to real world things that they might know about and kind of involve it on their level to see if I'm explaining it and understand it in a way where I can involve other things. So like with the cardiac system and with the pulmonary system, I explain a lot of things to my dad in reference to cars because he knows how to take apart cars. So I was like, okay, this is gonna be this is gonna be this, it's gonna be the same way as like a fuel injector. So
I don't know. What did you use for the analogy for the fuel injector?
Well,
is that the mitochondria
Well,
with the
I'm just-
hydrogen pump or something?
I'm just using it in regards to
No, I
like
get it,
anytime we
yeah.
talk about like a part, I'm gonna bring in something
Yeah.
in the best way that I can to explain something to my dad.
Okay,
He
so bringing it
Yeah.
into like real world terms, thinking about analogies, and once again, what you're doing is you're synthesizing
Mhm.
because in order to, you're bringing it into not only your own words, but you're having to think about it in a way that you're translating it, if you will, into car talk, right?
Mhm.
And so let me ask you this, Caleb, because while you were speaking, I was thinking about this. How have even as a GTA, how has creating those microvids, because you've created a lot of microvids over the past couple of weeks, how has that deepened your understanding of, because that's something that they could do, students at home could do this to review the material and go over concept by concept and create. I know we require 2 microvids, but maybe this is an effective way to study, and that maybe they need to start creating more micro. Not that we're going to require it, but from a personal standpoint, how has that helped you? Do you think in your level of understanding?
So I think for me, making the microvids, it's like, so before I make them, I actually go through the module as if I were a student. I read through the material to make sure I'm touching on everything. But it definitely helps me not only try to explain it in a well-versed way, because there's sometimes like I've recorded a lot of them that I've thrown away because halfway through I'm like, I said that and that sounds weird,
Or I said something that's like
Yeah.
not quite correct or accurate.
Yeah.
So you're catching yourself, you're going back and you're re-solidifying in your mind the actual correct concept, if you
Yes.
will, and then fleshing it out. So continue on.
Yeah, so with the microvids, I think it's really good because you prep by looking at the material, but then you make these videos, and while you're making them, you're hearing yourself speak, which is obviously for some people it can be something where it's like, oh, maybe I don't want to hear myself speak, but obviously it's like just personally for yourself. You don't have to showcase
Yeah,
every
you don't have to share the microvids to anybody.
Yeah.
They could. It's the process that's important, right?
But I think it's good because you're actively, without looking at notes, working your way through explaining something like in that moment, like you're in the frying pan.
You're forced to, right?
Yes.
It's almost like a presentation,
Mhm.
which in reality, when you look at a lot of the careers that our master students want to go into, it's in clinical careers, right?
Yeah.
Either clinical or educational, right? And so in both of those scenarios, you have to be able to explain things orally, right? You're not always going to have your notes. You're not always going to have a book, right? In fact, the majority of time when I'm lecturing or when a clinician is in the clinic, right? They're not going to be able to consult. They'll be like, wait, great question, patient. Let me go ahead and consult this. You got to have a base level of understanding, right? So
Yeah.
that's fantastic. That's really, really good. Anything else, Caleb?
Just like for my personal study habits, so I have never been a note taker. I just can't do it. It doesn't work for me.
Gotcha.
I note taking has never been something that was easy. I've bought notebooks and I'm like, I'm gonna fill them up with notes. I'm gonna be the world's greatest writer, and then I get like a page and I'm like, I'm done. So I
You
think
get wrist fatigue, right?
Yeah,
Remember
that's
your
right.
wrist cramp? Remember how you used to get those? See, I grew up before the internet. Maybe I don't know if you guys were in high school when, before electronic devices, but you would be writing. Some teachers and professors would write. So you try to copy everything down. You try to write. Your hand would hurt. You would get a hand cramp. It would just be
one of my finals
terrible.
in college was a 4-page paper that I had to write
Right in
the
class.
And I would stand
Yeah,
and
you just start shaking the hand and massaging that, and you're like, Dad, go, that hurts.
But So I don't know like how many people feel similar to that, where it's like note taking is kind of just not the thing for you. I think for me, what helps is I go through the material. When I'm going through the material, I'm actively, while I'm reading, thinking about like what could be asked of this material, or like what parts are essential to know for the foundational basis of everything else that may be asked. So in one of my study sessions, I said the thing about physiology, and specifically with our exams and how we're asking these questions, a lot of it comes down to you read the question and understand the question. Now, how do the answers change the outcome of that? So I explained breaking things down. So I'm going to use just a really basic example. One of the true or false on the TBL things I went over was like white matter in the spinal cord is myelinated, true or false, like going over that. And so I said, let's say this were any other question, all right, break it up. So what am I reading? I see white matter in the spinal cord. Let's say that we're talking about other things. I was like, is white matter anywhere else? Where like you break that up. So I'm like, okay, white matter in the spinal cord. I know where I am. I know what it's talking about. Now, what do I know about that stuff that it's talking about? And I was like, white, no, it's myelinated. So that'd be true. So you work your way through it. You break it up into separate sections because especially later on in the course when we get into things like circulation,
Right.
different professors have different way of writing questions or asking. A lot of circulation is going to be the answers are 90% the same, and then there's going to be one thing that makes it different. So if you break the not only the question, but especially the answers up, you can work your way through to be like, okay, this part's true, this part's true, this part is not right. So it comes down to breaking it up into bite-sized pieces.
And a lot of aspects and a lot of concepts in physiology, the more you learn, the more you realize that, and you have to have a foundational level, right? Which is what you all are getting now. But there will come a point when you kind of transition to, well, I've got the base knowledge, and you can do this with every discipline, right? Whether it's membrane, neuro, you've got the base knowledge. And even when you're presented with a question you've never had before, you can rationalize through that question and say, you know what, this makes sense. This answer choice makes sense. These other ones don't make sense because I have that foundational understanding of physiology, right? And you almost get out of a exam question mode and more of like thinking, okay, let's think mechanistically, right?
Yeah.
And think like a physiologist. And so that, once you get to that level, that's a really good and comfortable place to be because you could be asked anything, and it might even be an area that you don't know as well, right? You might know cardiac really well and membranes really well and muscle really well, but you don't really know neuro as well. But you can kind of rationalize based on how your understanding of muscle, of cardiac, of membrane. You can apply a lot of those concepts, right? Remember, everything is connected, right? There's nothing that is isolated, other physiology discipline from another one, right? It's all connected. Neuro is connected to breathing, is connected to the respiratory, which is connected to cardiac, connected to circulation, which is connected to renal and GI. Everything's connected. So once you start getting some of these concepts and gain that understanding, not only will you get better at learning how to study, like as Dom, as you said, but as Caleb said, kind of recognizing the right answer and why it's the right answer and the wrong answer and why it's wrong. So,
No.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, getting along that fact, another thing that really helped me is like we provided all these practice questions, but it's not only about being able to answer this question, it's you take it and look at it, how can I make this answer, like I know this is the right answer to this question.
Sure.
How can I make this answer the right answer? How can I change the question?
So what
this
makes the
answer
wrong
right?
answer wrong?
Yes.
And if C is wrong,
That's Dr.
how can I change
Yes, it
that
is.
to make it a right?
It's-
But that's next level thinking right there.
It is how Dr. Harris instructed us
So-
to work with circulation.
Yes.
But like I moved on and I applied it to like moving on. That's how I applied it to renal and
Well,
GI.
then essentially what you're doing is you're turning one practice question, exam level practice question, into 5
absolutely.
exam level practice questions.
Yeah.
And then you can toy around with changing the stem.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Because they get
fantastic.
the feedback on the answers.
Mhm.
like
Right.
going on
Yeah.
there.
That's fantastic. So
Yeah.
all of those are great suggestions. Any other suggestions in terms of your approach to studying. And then what we'll do is we'll just quickly transition over, once we have a word from our sponsor, we'll transition over into like, okay, what did it look like the day before the exam for you in terms of like, what was your approach? Like you could talk about your sleep, your eating, your, right before the exam, did you, my approach, well, before we get that, do you have any other last minute study tips or study in terms of the content, like how to approach content?
Two things that really helped me throughout the entirety of the course. Is mnemonics really help. I know like even in our class, like we shared mnemonics about different things. And so if you don't know what that is, that's like if you're looking at the pathway or you're looking at a big one people always talk about is like the cranial nerves. You look at the name of each or the name of each step if you're talking about a process and make it into like a rhyme scheme or a song or something to space it out to where you remember it. So like, the cranial nerves, it would be harder for me to go in and name each one back to back to back compared to if I'm just out learning it.
Right.
It's like there's all different kinds of mnemonics for it. I know it's like to touch and feel like very good velvet or
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's for the cranial nerves. And this is a really important, I want to jump in here. This is really important because this is what psychologists call a retrieval mechanism, right? So this is a retrieval mechanism. You have the knowledge, right? You've studied it, you know it, because we've all been there where we look back and we're like, why did I get this question wrong? I knew the material, I studied it, but for some reason I couldn't recall it or I couldn't apply it. And so mnemonic devices, you can do this with anything that has a process, right? Anything that has, 3 ways in which calcium can enter or increase intracellularly in a smooth muscle, right? Voltage gated calcium channels, ligand gated calcium channels, or IP3. So V, L, and I. So VLI, or let's see, we can do live, LIV. Let's do LIV. So live, in order for a cell to live, it needs calcium, right? So the 3 ways in which calcium increases in a smooth muscle cell, you got to live smoothly, right? So LIV, right? You got to live smoothly. And we, you like tell yourself, and honestly, like the quirkier and the weirder, sometimes the better it sticks, right? So you got to live smoothly, right? Yeah. So the ligand, the IP3 and the voltage gated calcium channels, right? So it's just little mnemonic devices like that throughout studying can really be beneficial. So that you said that was one thing. What was the other thing?
The other thing is because remembering numbers and values and all the little things is very difficult just if you look at it once or write it down once. For any exam or section where it wasn't just broad processes that I was remembering and I had to remember like little values or little things. I mean, Quizlet, like flashcards.
Use it. If it's there, it's available, use it. That's right. Yeah. So, and it's even now easier than ever to create study materials, right? You just go to AI, you go to Chat GPT, the free version, you go to Copilot, free version, you go to Grok, free version, you go to what's that other one? Perplexity, Gemini, what did you say? Quizlet now has AI. Everything has AI. So creating those is easier than ever. You have to be careful though, make sure the content that it's drawing from is the content that is that's there.
But that's all my stuff.
Great. Okay, good. Yeah. So Dom, any other last things? Are you good?
No.
Okay. So let's shift over. Here, let's get the glasses back. There we go. Well, there it is. There it is. Let's shift over. So, okay, let me keep taking them. Let's shift over and talk about your all's approach to the day before the exam. Okay. Yeah. You've hopefully at this point you have not procrastinated because as I mentioned at the beginning, you need to transition to studying a couple hours to a couple of days for preparatory work because that's just this is a master's in physiology program, right? Whether you're face-to-face or the online, wherever you are, you could be in another program, right? Whatever it is at the master's level. And I would even say this applies to undergrad, because it's the same transition going from high school to undergrad. High school, you could just kind of go in and do well. Then undergrad, you sort of had to study. Now the expectation is that you're going to be studying, you're mastering this content. So tell me what it looked like. And I'll tell you what I used to do. And I even still do apply whenever I have a big presentation coming up or I have something. I will the night before or the day before, I have done almost all of my preparatory work. It's done even the day before I have to do it. Now, there is some items maybe in the morning that I have to do, but I am a firm believer that number one, sleep. Sleep is important 2 days before the event. So going to bed at 10 and waking up at, 8 or something, like having a normal schedule. Hydration and healthy eating were huge, huge deals for me. Like that, I would say to myself, here's a cup. I have to drink this water, whatever. Yeah, I wouldn't over drink, right? But I would make sure I'm hydrated. And I would say there would come a point that I would have, what is it called? The law of diminishing returns, where no matter how much more you work at it, the output or the benefit is going to plateau. There is going to be a point where it just plateaus. Oh, you're good, Dom. It clearly recognizes you as the cool kid in the group. But there is a diminishing returns that is going to happen, right? And that time for me usually was around, I would say, like, I don't know, 10 o'clock. I think by 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. the night before the exam, I was like, I either know it or I don't know it. And if I stay up later, I'm just gonna lose that much more sleep the next day. So what was your all's, did you guys have an approach to the day before the exam?
The day before, like I said, like I'd have the exam study guide filled out. The day before would typically just look like talking with friends and reviewing the content.
Right.
And like I've already gone through and pretty much mastered everything.
Sure.
I've answered all of the practice questions.
Right.
It's just repetition and reviewing and knowing that I have to go to bed early, like you said.
So you used, and that's good. You basically used the day before the exam as a review day.
Yeah.
So it's like you've already done your really core
Yeah.
studying. Now that's not learning the material, right?
Yeah.
You want to differentiate
Yeah.
that. You've learned the material before that. You spent a day or 2 days,
Yeah.
or however many, whatever you spread it out of studying, and then the day before the exam, it's essentially like a quick review.
Yeah.
It's more light,
And
I
then-
guess you could say,
Mhm.
light training. We see this with even training with like marathons,
Yeah.
right? You do the hardcore training before,
Yep.
you put in the hours, you put in the work to gain the understanding, and then you'd maybe do a light run before the
Exercise
Yeah.
physiology.
That's right, exercise physiology. Very
It's like,
good. So
not me, but like my friend, she'd always have to work out the day before the exam. Like she had to get a good workout in
Right,
the day
right.
before the exam. It would make her feel
yeah,
better.
so you get those endorphins running, and you get, and it also you end up sleeping better.
Yeah.
When you go to bed that night, because you're probably mentally drained,
Yeah.
but you're physically tired, right? There is a physiologic relationship to getting that good deep sleep if you're tired. I find this, like, I try to work out, 6 days a week. Some weeks it's only 3, some days it's 7, right? Some days I go pretty hardcore. But I the days or the stints that I don't work out, I don't sleep as well.
Yeah.
I think, and I, not only believe this, but understand this physiologically, your bodies are meant to be used. We're not meant to be sedentary. And I think we work better when we're moving around. Caleb, what are your thoughts on this? We'll pass the glasses off to you. You got to scoot up a little bit. There you go, Caleb. There you go.
I'm very much a proponent. Is it proponent or it's proponent, like
Yeah.
proponent?
Proponent, yeah.
All right. English wasn't my major, so
That's okay.
but I'm a very big proponent
There it is.
of
Well said.
the day before is kind of a day, and this is something where, like, if you're studying for, if you want to go to medical school, like when you're studying for the MCAT, a big thing I heard from everybody and that I followed is the day before the exam, don't cram, don't study, like just relax the day before the exam. So I was a very big person where anytime there was an exam that I felt good for, I felt okay for, the day before I didn't do anything. Now, on the offhand, if I felt like an exam had things that I felt I was uncertain with, the day before I would review, but I wouldn't cram because sleep is important. So if it was something that was later on in the day, I would sleep, but then I would wake up, or I would sleep earlier and wake up earlier,
I did that too.
and then study that day.
Yeah, so like wake up. I mean, for me, if the exam was at 8:30, I remember doing this in undergrad all the time. I'm more of a morning person, so maybe it worked out better for me. But I would go to bed at 10 or 9, trying to go to bed at 9:30, 10, maybe 10:30. But I would set my alarm for 5 because I would know that, like, it's funny that you said that because I would do the same thing.
Now I heard that, like, so sleeping helps lock memories into your brain. It's something that it's something that we always talk about. I don't know all of the science behind it, but I know that like sleeping itself is supposed to help your brain store information more readily.
Do you
and
know
help
how? Do you know how it does that? Because I've read about this a little bit.
I
Does
have,
anybody know?
I've,
So
I've not.
what this does is sleeping allows you actually get your, and this is from a neurologist, right? Sleeping, when you sleep, what happens is your brain actually atrophies. So hypertrophy is increase in size and atrophy is decrease in size. So your brain cells actually atrophy, right? And just a little, not talking like massively, but a little bit. What I've heard now, once again, you got to verify all this, but what I've heard is when all the cells shrink, say by like 2%, what that allows for, it allows for the interstitial fluid that flows, it's the rivers in between your cells, to flow more freely and basically bathe your cells and replenish your brain cells in nutrients, but also to take away all the metabolic byproducts that have built up during the day, which is why sleep is necessary, right? We need it. Your brain will actually, get into sort of toxic levels if there's been sleep deprivation studies as well that people go insane after only like they try to keep up after 3, 4, like I think like
You start having
get nothing.
hallucinations.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think just a little tangent right there, chasing that rabbit. I think part of the science is that your brain actually atrophies just a little bit,
Gets refreshed.
and it gets refreshed with all of the interstitial fluid, once again, delivering new nutrients, taking away old nutrients. And this is important because how do we store memories? It's connections between neurons. Those connections initially, right? If this is a neuron, this is a neuron, those connections are feeble, right? They're very transient. And that is the difference between locking something in your short-term memory versus your long-term memory, right? It's the bridge of those connections and the strength of those connections. And what better way to strengthen connection than bathing, bringing along new nutrients and taking away the byproduct. Anyway, I digress here. We got a little bit into neurophysiology there,
But that would be my main
Okay.
advice is if you
Good.
feel good about an exam, maybe review a little the day before, but don't cram and then just relax most of the day. And then if you feel like you need to cram because there's some stuff you feel uncertain about,
Sure.
review that day, go to bed a lot earlier, wake up earlier for the exam because you're gonna be in a better headspace waking up after a full rest to study than you would staying up till 1 a.m. cramming
exactly.
and
At
then
the end of the
waking
day,
up at
that's a great point.
Yeah.
Like you said, you're going to be refreshed. You're going to have that bit of better headspace. Hopefully, you've got good amount of sleep, right?
Yeah.
So, and I know some people who would take. You want to be careful about talking about any type of sleep aids or drugs to help. Maybe you got a stuffy nose, NyQuil, DayQuil, whatever else. Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna work out here.
Get some of those melatonin.
I would not. I'm recommending against that. Let's just put it that way. I'm recommending against it. I think a natural approach is better. I'm thankful for over the counter. We're not talking prescription, but over the counter, meds when it's important, right? But the more you can just stay away from those because I do think they do affect you cognitively. And you want to be as sharp as possible on exam day. So, okay, I mean, that was pretty much what I wanted to talk about. Do you guys have any other topics or things that we should maybe visit with this?
The last thing we were going to talk about is we wanted to briefly talk about the microvid assignments and
Right.
then go into course wrap up. So the
Okay.
microvids, there's just if you go onto Blackboard and you look under the discussion tab, which is like right at the top, you see the 2 microvid discussion posts. And so what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to have two videos total, one per section, and then in each section respond to 2 different students' videos.
That's right. That's right.
And so those combined are worth one whole exam grade relative. So it's like
Yes. Yeah.
compared to exam 1 and exam 2, if you do these microvids and you put effort into them, and then we see your comments that you've watched these people's videos, that's an exam grade right there for you.
Yeah. And we had mentioned, I think we even talked about that we would, with the first microvid, since it's newer, we're going to grade a little bit more easy than the later ones that we're going to require. So don't neglect this. Don't leave it to the end. As we said before, that could be an amazing study aid for you. And who knows, maybe there's 2 exam questions that are over the concepts that you cover in your microvid, right? You don't know. So make sure that you do these. you get those points. Do not delay. Make sure that you do this. Okay, great
And-
recommendation.
And those are due the very end of the course, so October 8th. So it's in less than a week now. It's on Wednesday,
Five
right?
days, 5 days, yeah, 6 days.
So get those done before the end. Right now, today, the final has open. People can take the final. So like if you've taken the final or if you're prepping on taking the final, fill those in at some point when you can, because it's too quick, like
Right.
less than 10-minute videos, just getting them out there. It is
Well,
less
it's a
than
great
10
way to
minutes,
study.
so,
It's a great way to study. So I would encourage you, like, if you're like, oh no, I can't do the microvids because I have to study. No,
Yeah.
do the microvids because that's going to help you
yeah,
study.
yeah.
Find the concept that was most arduous or most difficult or most confusing for you, and dig in deep. And if you don't know where to start, you're like, hey, I don't have time. Reach out to your GTA. Reach out to me. We will help you organize and get started and say, like, here's what you need to know about this concept. Here's your talking points in your microvid. Take those talking points, make a microvid, and put it in that long-term memory, and you're good to go.
Speaking from
That's great.
personal experience, the microvids do help.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And
Very
then
good.
You
So
wanted to touch on the graded quizzes, right?
Yeah, just highlighting, you have 3 chances to take your graded quizzes.
Mhm.
They're not worth as many points as the microvids per se, but every point counts. And so
well,
you have-
actually, if the completion of the modules and the quizzes combined, so
Yeah.
completing the modules and the quizzes, that's 20% of your
Oh,
grade.
there you go.
So it is. That's
So,
right. So
yeah.
yeah, you
So-
have 3 attempts. So do
So
them.
like
Go back.
getting an 80%
That's right.
versus 100%. It's not much difference point wise, but I mean every point can matter in the end.
That's right.
And you have the opportunity to earn the point.
And what a better way to review and
And
study the material
retake your graded quizzes.
if you retake the graded quizzes. Very
get
good.
100% on all of them. Get
That's
all the
right.
points you possibly can.
Very good. Okay. All right.
That's everything.
And I think we're good to go. So we won't belabor this point. We are proponents of studying. Make sure that you study well. Please reach out to your GTA with any questions. We are here to help you. Okay. We've said that from the beginning. We'll say it again till we are blue in the face. Face. It's not mouth. Don't beat that dead cow. Don't beat that dead cow until you're blue in the face. We'll say it over and over and over. We are here to help you. We're excited that you're in the program. If you aren't in the program, you just watch this randomly on YouTube. Hey, apply to our program. You need a master's in physiology. This is something that is fun, it's exciting, and that will really help you gain that understanding that has application in any type of clinical setting or any type of setting involved. If you have young kids, learning physiology is going to really help you. And hey, you get a master's level graduate degree from it as well. So and once again, the online version works around your schedule. So that's all I have, and we're going to end it like we always end it. Stay cool, stay in school, don't do drugs, and I will see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Ring that bell, hit that like button. We'll see you all next time. Later.